Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
Happy Sunday to you, Vikings Vent Line. Back at it. Executive producer here, Declan Goff, rocking an off-season edition of Vikings Vent Line. We do the show in the off-season because we like to hear from Vikings fans 52 weeks out of the year. During the Vikings season, we have Mackie, Judd, and myself bringing you on the screen with us to talk about the Vikings games, but also there's plenty to always talk about in the offseason. So Vikings Vent Line also lives in the offseason. If you'd like to get in on a future episode of Vikings Vent Line, it's scrolling at the bottom of the screen for the YouTube audience. For the podcast audience, shoot me an email, vikingsventline@gmail.com, if you'd like to get in on a show. I have some guests still lined up for future shows, but please shoot me an email. I'll gladly get you in queue. Last minute openings also always happen, so shoot me an email if you have an interest in getting in on Vikings Vent Line. I'd love to hear from you guys. We got fans all over the place, all over the country, all over the globe. I'd love to come on this show, and this show really is about you guys, the Vikings fans. So shoot me an email. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com. Of course, Vikings Vent Line and Purple Daily are powered by TCL. Enjoy more of what you love with TCL and TCL televisions. And of course, Surly Brewing Company. Try the Furious, the Variety Pack. Go to the tap room, get the Warp Zone. That's my favorite one, exclusive to the tap room. Surly Brewing. They're a great beer company. They're right down the road here from KSTP and Score North. We love them. Go say hi to them. Tell them Score North sent you. I got my guy Bill and Paul who are about to join us here on Vikings Vent Line. Excited to hear from them. The draft is about a little less than a month away, so plenty of things still to be discussed, and also some other off-season topics that I'm excited to get into. So we'll waste no more time. Let's get our guys in here. We got Bill. We got Paul. Bill, you've been on Vikings Vent Line. You're a veteran of this show before.
Yes.
Paul, this is your first time. Bill, where are you located? Are you in Minnesota? Are you outside Minnesota?
Vegas.
And
Yes.
Paul, are you in California?
California. Yep.
California. Okay, cool. And Paul's a school teacher on lunch break right now, so this obviously works great for his time period.
Yes.
Bill is out there hammering the overs with now the prop bets being placed on the Vikings. So I'm sure there's plenty of bets that Bill's about to place already. I love it, dude. Guys, thanks for coming on Vikings Vent Line. I just want to get into it right away here. You know, we've kind of seen the free agent class come in a little bit here, and the Vikings roster mostly is going to stay the same. We'll get into them running it back in a little bit here, but I'm curious on your most impactful players that you see making a big difference in 2022. And of course, Justin Jefferson's name comes up. But as I was talking to you guys in the prep notes, that I was curious who is a player that you can see making a step forward that isn't named Justin Jefferson. Bill, I'll start with you. Who's someone that you think takes a big impact and takes a big step forward in 2022 for the Vikings?
I think it's Za'Darius Smith. And it's something they struggled with last year, even when they had Daniil. Yeah, Everson came back, and it took a little pressure off Daniil, but now you literally have kind of the essence of two Daniils. You know, Za'Darius on one side, Daniil on the other, moving one back into coverage, moving one in. The things that they could do with those two, because now Za'Darius is there, is unlimited. You know, who's coming from which direction, who's going out, I think that's the biggest impact. I think the defense already is better than it was last year with the signing of Pat P, bringing him back, and the guy from Green Bay, I can't think of his name right now, the slot corner.
Shannon Smith. Yeah.
You know.
You know, the 3-4 defense, which we're not really used to as Vikings fans. And look, I know Kevin O'Connell and Ed Donatel both said those will be situations where they use that traditional 4-3, but we haven't seen really the 3-4 defense be the base defense that the Vikings have had really in a long, long time. We're used to having those 4-down linemen. They're used to seeing guys off the edge, right? We've seen Jared Allen and Daniil Hunters and Everson Griffin, Ray Edwards, the Williams wall. We've always seen these staunch defenders on the line, and now with it being a completely different look, right? You have Za'Darius Smith who can play off the edge. He can be that outside linebacker that rushes the quarterback. And I agree, man. I mean, yes, there's some injury history there because he only played in basically two games in all of last year, one being the playoff game for Green Bay. Right. But if him and Daniil are healthy, right, like you can see them absolutely feasting on quarterbacks, and I'm excited for him too. And his salary's very lowered, and it's basically it's not a big risk for the Vikings to take a chance on him and pair him with Daniil Hunter, and I'm excited to see what he can do. Paul, what about you, man? Who's an impact player you can see taking a big step forward in 2022?
I don't know if I see him taking a big step forward, but I'm hoping Kirk. I'm hoping Kirk Cousins, because I think he needs to take that step forward of where he doesn't just put up good stats. He doesn't just, whenever we're down 7 points, he suddenly is Joe Montana out there or Tom Brady. He needs to do it to where he puts us in positions to win, where he puts us in positions where we can have a lead and keep a lead. And I know that goes with the defense too, keeping that lead, especially, whenever we're up in Baltimore last season or anything like that. But whenever the defense is struggling, he needs to be the one to lift the team. And I think the last, 3-4 years, he hasn't done that. And that's what we pay a quarterback $35 million to do, is lift up a team whenever things aren't working.
Bill, were you about to say something on Kirk there?
So we've all called for Kirk's head, I guess, at some point in our Viking life.
I wanted him.
I'm not a Kirk stan, but I do see. Like I was a quarterback in high school. I coached for a while after. I played for a while after. He's improved every year.
Yeah.
He's gotten better in every aspect of his game every year. And if you look at the last 2 years, he actually has more fourth quarter comebacks than any other quarterback in the league. You know what I mean? There's things that he has improved, and that's with an offense that was not designed for him. You know what I mean? That was a Zimmer offense, run the ball, play action, and they didn't even run play action this last year, really, anyways. But I think you put him with an offense that's designed for him, and I think he can take another step. I mean, is he going to be Mahomes? No, of course not. He doesn't have the physical attributes of Mahomes, but everybody calls him a check down guy when he's really not. You look at that offense last year, the last couple of years, the check downs were designed for 2-3 yards. You know what I mean? But then if you look at the Rams, you look at the 49ers, you look at Kansas City, their check downs are designed for 7-8 yards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So a quarterback can really, he could take a play and make it better than it is, but he can only do so much with a play call that is called, if you get what I'm saying.
No, I totally get what you're saying. You're right. I mean, he has taken steps forward individually. I mean, he had some comebacks last season. He could have had even more if kicks go their way and they don't get their bad calls. They don't get the bad calls against them. He definitely took a step forward. It feels like the team, right, has just kind of been flat, right? Like it's just been stagnant.
No energy.
Can he do something even more? Because with the price tag that's on him, can he get those expectations up and deliver it times 10? And yes, he has taken those steps, but he hasn't been able to take the biggest step to help them get them over the hump. Yeah. So it is a good point. I mean, I know we're hard on Kirk Cousins on this show, and on people who either hate watch us or don't watch us, I believe that we have this opinion that he's not a good quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He's a very good quarterback.
He's a good quarterback all the time.
Right. But can you win a Super Bowl with him?
History. Vikings
history. Yeah, right. I mean, statistically, he's right up there. So it is interesting. I like both those answers. Za'Darius Smith on the defensive side of the ball, and Paul, you bring up a good point. Can Kirk finally rise up and shut all of us up a little bit and say we indeed do like that, right? And can he actually take that next step forward? I'm hopeful that he can actually do that this season too. I'm curious.
Yeah, and I agree with Bill. I think the offense tailored towards him, I think he can. I definitely think he can.
So I'm also curious of your guys on your thoughts of the Vikings basically running it back here, right? I mean, Pat P's coming back. They got some plug-and-play guys now, and I know there's new guys in Jordan Hicks, and they signed a guard on Friday afternoon, so there's some competition there. But mostly the core players, Harrison Smith sticking around, Adam Thielen restructures, Justin Jefferson should still be a stud, Dalvin Cook's not going anywhere. For the large part, pending what we see in the draft here in a month, it's basically going to be the same Vikings that we saw in 2021 and almost in 2020. So I'm curious in your thoughts on them running it back. Bill, do you think it's a good idea that the Vikings are still kind of saying, nope, we're still fine here with Kirk. We just need a little tweaks, and then we'll take that next step forward. Do you think they're making the right call running it back?
I'm open to it. So now the first week I was kind of very doom and gloom. You know what I mean? I'm like, they're not doing anything. They're not. But in the quarterback, it means you got to forget. You got to forget Spielman. You got to forget Zimmer. You got to forget the past. And you got to move on with what's new. And there's a reason why the Vikings were the one everybody was saying was, the best place for a coach to go is because they are. If you look at the offense, they're stacked on talent. Is there really another team that has that many weapons?
Yeah.
Especially now with KC trading Tyreek Hill, they don't have those weapons. I don't think there is another team that has, Irv Smith, Thielen, Jefferson, Cook, and it goes on. So I'm okay with it, especially with I look at the Za'Darius sign and bringing Pat P back and whatever they do in the draft. If they can get another DB or get another linebacker, somebody that's gonna shore it up. I think our defensive line is stacked. And I'm okay with it because I look at last year, and I feel like last year they were coaching away from another 4 or 5 wins. I think in the Bengals game, they're coaching away from winning that game. I look at the Baltimore game, same thing. Like they're just a more aggressive coach on offense to getting them to win those games.
There's too many talented players in that offense for them not to be a top 5 offense. And that's what I think it's been frustrating a little bit me, right? Like they've been 11th and 12th in scoring the last 2 seasons. And when you really consider all the cooks in that kitchen, they should be better, pun intended.
If you look at those,
You're good. Kevin
look at the first. My bad. Go ahead. You go.
I was going to say that Kevin O'Connell is supposed to be the guy that unlocks it, right? Like that's why they shifted the philosophies, right? That's why they shifted the culture. Everything has to go to Kevin O'Connell to unlock that offense. So I'm hopeful that he can do that too.
I look at the first 4 games of the season, and it seemed like the offense was wide open, and Kirk was running the offense. The Seattle game, I go back to I watched all the games over and over again, in the offseason, just going back and forth. That Seattle game is the best game I've ever seen Kirk play. And it's one of the better games I've seen any quarterback play in the last few years. If you watch it, he's coming up to the line, he's checking, he's changing the play, he's going in. And I feel like Kirk got frustrated later on because I feel like Zimmer kept taking the reins back because they weren't winning, even though they were scoring points. And Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen were 1 and 2 the first 4 games of the season in yards.
Yeah.
But I think it wasn't Zimmer's way, so he started pulling the reins back. And I feel like the offense just got frustrated.
Totally. Paul, what do you think, man? Do you think the Vikes are making the right call running it back? No, you're good. Paul's a school teacher, and even all of his intercom and everyone has takes as well.
Yes.
So he's at the elements right now.
Everybody wants
on the offense. Yeah.
Everybody has takes. I wanted them to take the Bears approach.
No, it's all good, man. You can talk over them by all means. I'm okay with that. Unless it's too loud. Like by all means, you can talk over it. I'm cool with it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I just didn't want it to sound bad, but maybe me muting is even worse. But I wanted them to take the Bears approach where they took, the high-paid players and shipped them off. I liked what you guys were talking about where, you work towards that 2023, 2024 cap space, and then you could be big spenders in free agency. I wanted them to take that approach. And whenever they didn't take that approach and they signed Kirk, and then they extended, Thielen and didn't trade anybody. The only person they released was Adam Pierce, but no offense to him, but that's fine. That's fine. No, that's perfectly fine. I was very much oh man, what are they doing? But I'm willing to, like Ryan, I'm willing to see it out. I'm willing to say, okay, let's see what happens. If it maybe this year is a necessary year, because if it still ends up like last year, maybe then they're like, okay, now we need to tear it down. So maybe this is a necessity. Maybe it is a necessity to where, okay, it's not just Zim, it is the players, and we need to get rid of these high-paid players.
What the Bears are doing here, gearing up for next season, is a tough sell to your fan base immediately, right? I mean, the Bears are basically admitting, hey, I know it's a new regime, and we got an exciting young quarterback, but things are going to be a little bleak still to start this 2021 season. But hey, in 2022, we're going to gear things up. We got a ton of dough ready to spend. When the free agency opens, we're going to be one of the big spenders, and that's going to be our year to tear it down or to build it back up after we just tore it down this season. From the Vikings side, and they got the rookie QB on that deal, which helps that cause, right?
Yes.
But the Vikings are saying, hey, no, we there's just small little tweaks here, and look, O'Connell and Kwesi could end up being right here, but that's the issue. It just seems like the roster still isn't good enough for them to make that big hump. I know we talked about if the offense is better, great, but can that mean you're a double-digit win team and you're not just like sneaking into the wild card, but you're competing for the division and a potential number 1 seed in the NFC? And I think that's just too far of a gap to make a big jump from just you're changing a coach and running it back with basically the same roster. So I'm curious on that. What are your guys' just expectations too for this season? I mean, I ask a lot of Vikings fans this on Vent Line, and everyone's kind of had a little bit of a different answer. I'm curious, Bill, I'll start with you. What are your expectations for the Vikings in 2022?
Well, I think the NFC is wide open. I mean, you have all the quarterbacks in the AFC. You know what I mean? You have the Rams, you have Tampa, and you have kind of Green Bay. I mean, he has nobody to throw the ball to, but it's wide open. I think they can win the division. I think they could have double-digit wins. You know what I mean? It doesn't take that much to flip a team. You know what I mean? You look at San Fran. San Fran a couple years ago was what, 6 wins, 7 wins, and then they're in the NFC Championship last year. You know, it doesn't take the NFL. There's always those teams every single year that you're like, oh, they're nothing, and then they're here. Last year, everybody's talking, oh, Minnesota's up here, and then they were down here. And it doesn't. I feel like this team. Why I don't agree with the Bears' approach is there's too much talent on this team to blow it up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You can't. And nobody wanted to leave. Everybody wanted to stay in this team. There was nobody coming out saying, you know, I want to go here, trade me, do this. I think the core group of players believe they can get there. And that's the most important part. If the players believe they can do it, they can do it. Or they can at least get close to it. And I expect – everybody say I'm drinking Viking Kool-Aid. I expect 2 playoff wins.
Okay. I like it.
Year, minimum.
I love the expectation of it. Look, I like your San Fran comparison, right? Like San Fran was middling after they made their Super Bowl appearance in 2019. And 2020, it was a blah year, right? They had some injuries and just things didn't go their way. But then they win 2 playoff games, right? And they're on the doorstep of potentially going to Super Bowl. They had a 10-point lead in the second half. They could have very well been back in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So, hey, the expectation of 2 playoff wins, I love that. Paul, what do you think, man? What are your expectations for the Vikings in 2022?
For sure, playoffs. Like, at a minimum, you have to get at a minimum that 7 seed. But my honest expectations is minimum, you know, a high wild card, you know, 5 seed. Division, I don't know. Rodgers is still Rodgers, so I don't know if we're going to be able to get the division. But at a minimum, you know, a high wild card to give us a chance to at least win 1 game. I would love for them to win 2 games, but I don't know if I'm my expectations is them winning, you know, multiple games, but for sure a wild card. And then honestly, I expect this defense to take a leap forward. It doesn't have to take a big leap forward. We were like 30th, 31st or something like that. If we get into the low teens or the 18, 19, 20, that's a big improvement. And then I know that's how it was when Zim first got here. He brought the worst defense and brought us up to mid teens, and then the offense should take a step forward too. So I think all that means playoffs, if not division, and hopefully from there we can win ourselves a playoff game or 2 or 4.
Yeah, right. I know. It feels like if the offense indeed reaches its full potential, can that defense just be, to your point, like 20th to like 16th in points allowed, right? Like not a complete sieve like they've been the last 2 years, but competent.
In 2 minutes.
And in situations like inside of 2 minutes or on third downs or in red zone, like can they figure out a way to be situationally good? I think that's all you can really ask for from a defense. Can you be situationally good in the red zone and not committing dumb turnovers and that kind of stuff? And if that offense is indeed top 10, top 5 like it should be now with Kevin O'Connell, yeah, that's probably a playoff team. And injuries on defense could potentially derail things and just inexperience and guys getting older. But I'd be shocked that it would be like 30th again, even though they've turned the things over from from a defensive coach to an offensive coach. It should be a lot better in 2022. So I'm curious how it rolls there as well. Guys, I always love to give just like one last take you want to get off your chest. Any shout outs you like to do when I wrap Vikings Vent Line? Bill, I'll start with you. Got anything else you'd like to get off your chest here?
Real quick, the reason that I'm positive on this team, the competitive rebuild thing, and I know everybody's blasting the competitive rebuild, you can. And the similarities of this team that I look at, so I started going through the last few Super Bowl champions. Kansas City did the same thing. Not St. Louis, L.A., the Rams pretty much did the same. They had their quarterback. They gave him a big contract, and then they got their quarterback. Kansas City did the same thing. They had oh my God, I can't think of his name now.
Alex Smith.
Before
Alex
Mahomes, yeah.
Alex Smith, yep.
So they had him. They drafted their guy, and at the same time, they're going to the playoffs. They're winning divisions. You know what I mean? They're doing what they can to win. They're not tanking. They're not throwing it in the towel. You can competitive rebuild, and I look at it. They were open to trading Kirk. It's not like they were like, no, we're not trading Kirk. They just didn't get what they wanted. They still want to win at the same time as rebuilding, and I will give them the time, just like we all gave Spillman and Zimmer the time, and we gave them everything. You have to see the season, but I see a lot of similarities to those teams. And those teams, what people don't understand, you can't just score. When they won the Super Bowls, they had top 10 defenses.
Yeah.
So you can have the greatest quarterback in the world, but if you don't have a defense, you're not going to win anything. And I think this defense is definitely trending a lot better than it's been the last couple of years. If they can get 15, they have a chance.
Yes, sometimes just gotta get lucky on defense, right? Like that Saints defense that won a Super Bowl, like that wasn't a great defense. They just created a crap ton of turnovers, and that's not like sustainable, or it's not. Yeah, with Favre literally helping them to it, but that's not a sustainable recipe. But at the same time, if it works for 1 year, hell, that's all we care about. We just want to see the Super Bowl before we die. That's the entire mission statement on this show. So, for God's sakes, just to your point, Bill, just be an average defense, because this offense is most likely going to cook. It's all we need.
Exactly.
All we need is for them to be at least a competent defense. Paul, what about you, man? Anything else you'd like to get off your chest here on Vikings?
I'm just cautiously hopeful with this season and with this. I think Kwesi and KOC, I think they're the right guys, but so that's the optimistic part. But I'm just very cautious with the whole, bringing everybody back and the Kirk extension, because I think the key, like Mackie says all the time, the key to win is, getting that rookie quarterback on the rookie scale contract. And that's what I want, because I haven't been following the team for as long as most people. I've only been following it since 2008. And since then, we haven't had, a good quarterback on a rookie contract. We had Ponder, but that wasn't good. We had Teddy, but his knee exploded. Love Teddy too. But that's what I want. I wanted a, rookie quarterback on a rookie scale contract. Kirk here for one season, and then the rookie could take over. But I'm always optimistic. And at the end of the day, I'm always optimistic. I always think, oh, we got this. We can, win this division. And it's just the last couple of years have kind of beaten my optimism down a little bit.
Yeah, dude. As much as we sometimes can be, a little harsh on this team, get excited for the draft, the season rolls around, and that purple Kool-Aid starts flowing a little bit, right? Like once the sting of the regular season ends and you get over that and get all that frustration out, and you get a little bit optimism reigning a little bit, and things start to pick up. So I'm excited to see what they do in the draft here. I think it's going to be a blast. And I, you know what? Even though the Vikings and NFL season is only like 3 or 4 months, this is why I love talking to Vikings fans, because I'm always curious in what they're thinking about, and this optimism is key. And I think that's an important part too. So appreciate it. Hey guys, Bill, Paul, appreciate you dudes joining me on Vikings Vent Line.
Appreciate the show.
Of course. Thank you for coming on. If anyone is watching this for the first time, hit the subscribe button. We are a daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, 7 days a week. We're on Apple, Spotify. The Score North app is also a central hub. And again, if you'd like to get on a show, shoot me an email. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com. I will gladly add you to the queue. We will be back on Monday with Mackie and Judd back at full strength. This has been Purple Daily.